Hello and welcome to our video on grouped frequency tables. These types of tables can be useful to show data when you have many values that you can't graph all of them. And it will also help us to draw a histogram, which we'll look at doing in our next video. Grouped frequency tables are similar to normal frequency tables, but the data is grouped into groups or class intervals. So we often call the groups class intervals. That's a word that or a term that you'll need to know to use in mathematics. So I've got two examples here. The first one has, actually they're both frequency tables of the same data, and they are marks students have received in a test. A test was out of 50 marks. So some students have scored in the lower range and some students have scored up in the higher range closer to 50. So before creating this frequency table, the person thinking about it would have had to think about the class intervals that they used here. The heading is class for this, and they've chosen the intervals to go from 11 to 15. So they're going up in fours each time. When you choose your intervals, make sure they go up in equal amounts. And the reason I've shown you these two, this one here, the first table, shows you the data going up in fours, and this would be useful if you only had data that had whole marks. So either 14, a 15 or a 16. So you couldn't get a 15.5 or a 16.5 in this test. If you have data like that in whole marks, then you can use class intervals like this. In the second column, you just count up how many people have scored in this interval or range, and the frequency goes there. So 2 people have scored between 11 and 15. The table doesn't tell us where or what exactly their marks were between 11 and 15. They might have both been 11 or both been 15 or anything in between, but there are 2 marks that sit in that range there. If you had slightly different data, like this second table, maybe it was, well, maybe it's still marks for a test, but you could get half marks. If there are half marks involved, it's really important to put to decide where the frequency class intervals start and end. So this one, for example, if you had 15.5, it wouldn't really fit in here because this is 15.0 and this is 16.0, so it doesn't fit in either of these. So if you do have decimal points, you need to make sure you include them in your range. So this one goes from 10.5 to include 10.5 and more, all the way up to 15.5. And after that is 15.5 to 20.5. I would probably even change this one slightly to make, because 15.5, you don't really know whether it fits into this one or this one. So I would look at changing this to make that 15.6. 15.6 to 20.5 and then 20.6 onwards to 25.5, 25.6. So just make all of these 0.6 so you're very clear about where each number fits into the class. Now what you're going to have to do, you're going to be given a list of raw data, and you'll need to decide on the class intervals for yourself. So as this person's decided to go up in fours, you could decide to go up in twos or fours or tens or hundreds. It will depend on how large the data values are and how spread out they are. But you're probably looking for 8 to 10 different categories. If you have more than that, I would make your class intervals larger. If you have less than that, you need to make them smaller. First example we've got here, the following data shows the results of a survey to find the number of cups of coffee each person drinks in a day. Here is the data list, and the question says create a grouped frequency table showing the data. So the first thing we need to do is think about our class interval. So I'm going to name it number of cups, and I'll just put class interval in brackets. I'm going to draw a line down the side for our table. I might make that cups look a bit more like cups. I'm deciding the intervals I'm going to use. I'm going to look at the lowest number of cups, which is 0 in this raw data. The highest number is 19. No, not there. Here, 19. So I need to go between 0 and 19. I could go in 5s, but there would only be four classes, which is a bit few, so I need to go less than 5. I think I might choose 3s. So my first one, I'm going to start at 0 to include 0, 0 to 3. I don't need to include halves because there are no half cups of coffee, at least not in this survey. 0 to 3 for my first category, 4 to 7 is the next 3, 8 to 11, 12 to 15, and 16 to 19. Once I've got my categories and my class intervals, I can make, and it can be really useful to have this middle column while you're still working out your total frequency. This is a tally column where you just tally up how many of each class are in each class interval. Start with a 12, and that would go in here, so put a 1, a 16 goes here, 11 goes here, and keep going with your tally. Once you've got your completed tally, you can fill in the frequency column, which is the last one. Which is this column up here, which I've put in the far right hand column. All we need to do is add up the tally. So we have 2 data points in this class interval, 4 here, 8, 4, and there should be another one there to make it 2. And when you've added them all up, you have a completed grouped frequency table. Thanks for watching the video.